got to really be there and see it and feel it before it actually materializes. That he's going to lay out a vision of what a community on a Bitcoin standard looks like.
Good, y'all. Back at it again with another video. I just got back to the hotel. Today was a long work day. I worked for about 12 hours, so I'm tired. I don't want to make this video right now. I don't want to go work out, and I don't want to do this book recap. But guess what? I'm going to do all those things because I have to be consistent and I have to do the things that are going to make me better every day, regardless of how I feel. So, with that being said, I'm about to hit this gym. They got a little gym in this the hotel that I'm in right now. It's about 7 o'clock. So get a 30-minute workout in. It's going to be a high-intensity workout. So I don't need it to be long in order to get a nice pump, get a nice workout in. And after that, I'll go get some food. And then after that, I'll come back and do the recap. Do the book recap of chapter 9, which talks about the redemption of money. And I didn't take any trades today, so I'm not going to be giving a trading recap. The election is tomorrow, and probably not going to trade tomorrow. And so, yeah, let's get into it. You can call this a mini vlog, I guess. Not really a vlog, but yeah, let's get on with it.
What's good, y'all? So just got back from, I really went to get some food, and then I had a conversation with my pops on the phone and drove around the city that I'm in a little bit. Went and looked at some houses. I like to go and find the money, where the money finds me whenever I'm in different places. You know, go and look at the different houses, nice neighborhoods, getting some ideas of the type of life that I want. You know, because eventually I'm gonna have those nice houses or whatever. I'm gonna be able to live in those types of houses. So you got to really be there and see it and feel it before it actually materializes. But anyways, let's get into chapter 9 of Thank God for Bitcoin. And the title of it is The Redemption of Money. He starts the chapter off by saying that he's going to lay out a vision of what a community on a Bitcoin standard looks like and how it could come about. So the first thing he talks about is accountability, and how because there's a finite supply of Bitcoin, it will return our monetary system back into a system that is accountable. Each input will have an equal output. And he says, unlike the current monetary system, which violates accounting rules through theft, Bitcoin requires a matching of inputs to outputs, debits to credits, and spending to revenue. So he goes on to talk about better, smaller government. And he says the larger the government, the less accountable it is, and fiat money enables unbridled government growth. How does it do this? Because the government can just print off all this money, they can fund different programs through inflation, and this results ultimately in bigger governments. And an economy based on lies and theft, that he says, will fund programs based on its intentions and not its results, which I spoke about in some earlier chapters. And since these results don't matter, it sets the stage for nepotism and cronyism to come into play, because you don't have to really provide value. You don't have to really get results in order to have a position of authority, have a position of power, because the money's just going to be printed anyways. It doesn't really matter who's going to be in position. So a lot of politicians or a lot of people in power just put their family on, put their people on. And yeah, he says fiat money incentivizes us to throw money at every problem, which increases the size of government but does nothing to address underlying problems. So through all of these different programs that are funded, they essentially just put a band-aid on the problem that we really have. And like he says, just throws money at it, and that's the proverbial band-aid. And they don't really get to the underlying issues, which he says is the monetary system as a whole. He says Bitcoin changes this. The power of stealth taxation through inflation is removed as an option. Adherence to a specific budget naturally constrains the growth of bureaucracy by forcing programs to compete with each other for resources. This competition ensures that over the long term, only the most creative and effective programs survive. Such constraints also limit cronyism and grift. I thought this was an interesting concept because it makes sense. If there's a limited supply of resources, then you're going to have a different respect for that resource. No different than with, if you're a dude, no different with girls. Some girls are at another level, other levels than other girls. You're not going to treat the higher value girls, whatever that is in your perception. you're not going to treat the higher value girls the same as you treat the lower value girls. You're going to have a different respect for it. You're going to treat them differently, and no different with, with the money. So the way that I see this is, okay, let's look at it in the form of women. I'm a dude, I like women. So there's this type of girl, lower value, for whatever reason, whatever you see as lower value. Then there's this type of girl, higher value. You're not going to treat these two type of women the same. You're not going to give them the same level of respect and the same level of consideration because of their respective values. And no different when it comes to the type of money that we use. The fiat money, because of its nature, because it's an everlasting supply, you lose respect for it because there is no scarcity. So you're not going to treat that money the same. The governments aren't going to treat that money the same when it comes to how they spend it, because there's just so much of it. It doesn't really matter what they do with it. Whatever problems that they don't solve, they can just throw more money at it and put a Band-Aid on it for a little while until that Band-Aid bleeds out and they need another one and need another one, and it's never in a cycle. He says Bitcoin changes this because there is a limited supply, and this represents, that higher value woman, whatever that is to you. It represents that because there's a limited supply, it's more scarce, and you're gonna put a different respect on it because you can't just make it out of thin air. If there's a problem that needs to be solved, okay, we have this limited amount of resources. We need to figure out a way to solve this problem in the most efficient way possible to where we don't have to keep on solving the problem over again. And he's saying that with this fiat system, it's basically like we're choosing to entertain the lower value woman. So yeah, that's what I got from that. I hope that, that explanation kind of made some sense for you. But he says governments will function more like private enterprises, meaning those that were financially irresponsible will fail. Making way for more prudent successors. Governments will be forced to satisfy citizens to survive because the money being spent will be real and scarce. Basically just saying what I just said. So he says when theft through inflation is no longer an option, governments are forced to compete to serve the community, which is what a government is supposed to do in the first place. The government is supposed to serve the needs of the people. It's just somehow, some way, we got it all backwards to where now we're serving the government. So he said this causes tax rates to become more market-driven and therefore more affordable. At the same time, the government services improve since they are forced to compete for tax dollars. Even the most ruthless tyrant is limited by more money. So what he's saying here is if the government services aren't quality, then people aren't going to use their dollars to fund those government services. So it would behoove them to So, all right. So they would be playing themselves if, they didn't improve the quality because another service can come along and it's just going to take those tax dollars. Healthy competition is necessary in order for a community to grow. So he then talks about how politics can become cleaner because of Bitcoin. He says those who want to win an election can promise anything they want because no explicit taxes have to be enacted to pay for it. Hence why most people my age don't care about politics. I don't care about politics because I understand the system that we're in, and I understand that most of the things that they're saying probably not going to get done. I haven't seen any changes in the hometown that I grew up in from Obama, from Trump, from anybody. I haven't seen any changes directly, in the community that I grew up in. So neither have I seen them from any politicians, especially the ones that were allowed to just come in our church whenever they wanted to get votes or whatever. I saw no change. The most change I've seen in the community I've grown up in is we got a basketball court, and that wasn't even from politicians. That was from the Hornets or the Pelicans. So yeah, he says dirty politics are a result of the dirty monetary system. They would be held accountable for the results and not just the intentions. As a result, the type of people going into politics would improve because those without the character to be accountable would be voted out. What he's saying is Bitcoin is going to incentivize real business again. It's going to incentivize real value again, real competition. The money that we use is valueless, so people are going to operate as such. Bitcoin has a value to it, so people are going to operate as such. So he says further, political corruption would necessarily decline because the payoff from bribing political leaders would also be constrained by the budget. Bitcoin could simultaneously make politics less relevant in our lives and politicians more virtuous overall. So if you can't print off all this money to just pay off these politicians to fund whatever programs you want, okay, then all the hype that comes with being a politician won't be there, and a lot of people will stop trying to be politicians, and it would be less incentives. There would be less incentives to become a politician because you won't be getting all this money because there's a budget, and you will be getting into politics because you actually care about the community. Obviously, you're going to get compensated, but you won't be getting compensated at the level that the politicians are getting compensated on now, and that's the main point. The main point is a lot of career politicians are career politicians because of the money, not because they care about the community. It's because they get paid off and bribed and all this good stuff. So he goes on to talk about disincentivizing war by using Bitcoin. So he says, suppose a tyrant wants to start a war with a neighboring country. The dictator will need the support of the people, an army, and the funding. So he says the support of the people will come through propaganda, and the army could be acquired through conscription. And he says the war can't be funded without money. And the only way a government can get money is through borrowing, taxation, or inflation. A government bound by scarce money will not want to kill off a vast percentage of the population through violent battles. Why? Because without being able to print money and just inflate the money, the main ways that a government can make money is through borrowing and taxation. Well, if you kill off everybody, who are you going to tax? And who are you going to borrow from? So that's how Bitcoin can de-escalate wars and disincentivize wars. So he talks about financial access. For poor households, saving money is often more trouble than it's worth. Yet saving for the future is one of the only ways to get out of poverty. In our current system, saving money is doubly difficult. Not only are bank accounts costly and often inaccessible, but investments are complicated and expensive. There's a whole industry of financial professionals that get paid handsomely to navigate the complexities of various investments. One day I'll be one of those people. The industry exists to outrun inflation, which naturally destroys savings. He says Bitcoin can fix this. It's a vehicle for long-term savings because it's deflationary. Anyone with a phone or computer can immediately set up a Bitcoin wallet. No ID or bank is required, and the funds are secured digitally, making it difficult to steal. Without a third party being involved, you don't have to worry about somebody taking your money saying you can't send money. Solves that problem. Bitcoin gives financial access to those who need it most. For those suffering under oppressive regimes, Bitcoin faces an even more pernicious problem. Financial intermediaries often charge exorbitant rates, and authoritarian governments steal the community's resources directly. Bitcoin's lack of financial intermediary renders this kind of abuse and theft impossible. By cutting out middlemen, Bitcoin maximizes value and freedom for its holders. He then talks about improving living standards. Goods and services priced in Bitcoin will become more affordable and improve significantly over time as technology develops. This is because people are more incentivized to save. So, businesses don't want people to save. Why? Because businesses want people to spend their money with them. So, if you have a currency that's being devalued so much that it's incentivizing you to spend it rather than save it, businesses aren't really worried about making the quality of the goods better because they know the money's going to come in because you're better off spending it than you are saving it. But if there's a scarce amount of money and this money incentivizes you to save the money, then in order for businesses to get you to spend their money, they actually have to be better at making better quality products. They have to actually innovate at a better rate. So craftsmanship and creativity get rewarded and items last longer and work better. Workers are incentivized to develop more skills and are judged based on their merit. In short, the quality of both goods and labor improves. So just like bad money incentivizes bad products, good money incentivizes good products. He says, because the supply of Bitcoin is fixed, Bitcoin is a true measuring stick by which all other goods can be valued. On the Bitcoin standard, economic calculations become simpler and in turn allow entrepreneurs to make better decisions. So how does it make the calculation simpler? To me, it makes it simpler because you don't have to calculate for a devalued currency. A lot of calculations in finance and economics, you have to, factor in inflation over time. But with the good money, you won't have to worry about that. He says less money, effort, and time is wasted on unworkable ideas as those resources instead are redirected toward what the market demands. In other words, Bitcoin allows righteous living and civilization to flourish. He says bureaucracy is an accumulation of bad decisions fueled by wasteful debt finance spending. And he says that our schools, our hospitals, and our businesses all feed off of this fiat money. He then goes on to talk about how Bitcoin brings about a new perspective of time. It causes people to properly value other people's time. Bitcoin causes us to value our time more because our labor can be stored in money that holds its value. As a result, we don't worry about our money as much and are left free to pursue more meaningful work. Bitcoin reflects the scarce nature of time by being perfectly scarce. If we don't value other people's time, we are not loving them. Damn, that's facts. The core evil pervading our wasteful bureaucratic systems is that they have stolen billions of hours of human time. We can act against the evil by using money that better reflects the value of human time. He talks about how Bitcoin can help to bring back strong families. So the emphasis on consumption has negative consequences upon how we view people. You have to think about it. Almost everything we do, every decision we make revolves around money, whether you think about it like that or not. Oh, you want to go to Florida? Money. You want to travel the world? Money. Oh, you want to get an education? Money. Everything is money. Everything is money. And instead of thinking about a kid as a blessing, think about having a baby as a blessing, which it is. You think about it more as a burden because of money. And he's saying that with Bitcoin, with a currency that is holding its value, you don't have to plan so much for the future. You don't have to worry about money so much and worry about the value of your work and your time being devalued so much. And you can actually see the blessings that come with raising a family. You can actually appreciate, the blessing that it is to create life and, continue to bring about life instead of worrying about having to get abortion because you can't afford it, and yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. It's a really good point because, man, it's showing how bad money affects literally everything. The reason is because our society views people primarily as consumers or as problems to be solved rather than as problem solvers. This is why we may view children as liabilities who consume our wealth rather than as assets and blessings. On the Bitcoin standard, this changes. Instead of thinking about the short-term pain of childbearing, Bitcoin frees people to have a more expansive view of time. This enables the long-term blessing of children to be more evident. A longer time horizon helps us to see children as essential contributors to the health and sustainability of the community and not as short-term financial liabilities. Why? Because human time will be valued differently because the money that we're using is scarce. So it's a proper, measurement stick to measure time because it's equivalent to time in the sense that it's scarce. So instead of seeing a kid as, oh, it's taking more of my time because I have to make way more money, more money because of this bad money is being devalued, you can now have a wider view, a better view on kids because your money is being saved and your money is growing over time. You know, it's your work that you put in is being sustained and you don't have to worry so much about money, you know. So you can actually save up to take care of a kid and not have your money be devalued. And because work is properly valued and time is properly valued, a kid is now seen as a blessing because it's another contributor to society, to the growth of society. So it's a good way to look at it. He says this will result in more stable marriages and more children. This will also remove the fear and urgency that motivates many abortions. Parents who live with a low time preference are more likely to produce children who make low time preference decisions. What he means about low time preference decisions is someone that is trying to live their greatest life right now, trying to, you know, they spend all their money and make their decisions based off of right now and don't really plan for the future. Versus a high time frame preference is somebody that is planning for the future and is, you know, they're delaying their gratitude, you know, for the future. So he said children who understand that work produces abundance are far more likely to grow into productive adults and less likely to be reliant on the government. Children such as these are indeed a blessing. He then talks about a church economic reformation. And the first step to any reformation is confession. Bitcoin is an incorruptible money on whose rules cannot be changed without the entire community's consent. The self-sovereignty of each individual is respected and theft is made very difficult. Why? Because of the network that Bitcoin runs on. It's tens of thousands of computers that it runs on. So if you didn't see the last video, I talked about that. So yeah, go dig into that. He says Bitcoin fixes many of the corruptions of our current monetary system. Bitcoin, however, is not a panacea. So he's saying Bitcoin can't fix everything. Obviously, there's problems. But he's saying it's a better moral money. And due to its rapid monetization, it's been a way for many to get rich quick. And this can be a problem, is what he's saying. He said the goal is to create a world where we're more aligned with God to the benefit of others, not to seek meaning in material wealth. If monetary gain becomes our goal and focus, we have already lost. So he's saying don't look at Bitcoin as just it's worth 30K, I'm gonna buy 30K, and then once it gets to $1 million a coin, I'm gonna sell it and I'll be rich. He's saying look at it from a broader perspective. Look at it from a monetary, a true monetary perspective. He says, why not return to gold? Proverbs 26:11 says, like a dog that returns to its vomit, so is a fool who repeats his foolishness. I felt that one. He said the unfortunate reality is that the world has moved past gold. Why? Because everything's digital. Gold is too cumbersome, it's too difficult to transact in, it's too heavy. It's just too much. Like, who wants to carry gold around? Nobody. So that's why technologically, we've outpaced gold. And he said even if countries did return to a gold standard, it's going to result in where it got us today. Central banks controlling all of it, and then eventually eliminating the convertibility of it and putting us back on a fiat system. So that's why he gave that verse at the beginning, saying that we're pretty much going to repeat the same thing if we go back to gold. And he said it's also, which I didn't think about this, he said it's also the political people that are in charge, they're disincentivized to go back to gold because the current fiat system is giving them too much. It's giving them too much power. There's too many benefits of this fiat system for the people in power to even want to go back to that. Why would they do that? So instead of requiring a political majority, individuals can choose to adopt without overhauling the existing system. There's also no trust involved. So what he means is there's no intermediary when it comes to Bitcoin. I can send it directly to you without a middleman. So you're not going from fiat, you're not going from a trust system to having to trust another system. You're going from a trustless system to a trustless system. And that will make it easier for everybody to adopt it at their own pace. And people are going to use it according to what they need it for. And the more that we live and the more that this fiat currency, this fiat system runs, the more people are going to wake up and see that, oh, this is not okay. And the more people are going to adopt it, the more people that get oppressed, and the more countries that oppress their citizens by confiscating their money directly or inflating their money or just eliminating the India eliminating the use of large bills, people are going to see, okay, we need to make a change. Then they're going to discover the change, Bitcoin, and it's going to be adopted, naturally. It's going to happen naturally is what he's saying. So he said Bitcoin can win through competition on the free market instead of having to be imposed on the community like fiat money. Bitcoin exists independent of the political system. He says Bitcoin fixes us, and then he gives a verse from Ecclesiastes 3:11, which says, yet God has made everything beautiful for his own time. Facts. He has plenty of eternity in the human heart, but even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from the beginning to end. So I concluded there is nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. And people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruits of their labor, for these are the gifts from God. So he says he gave this verse because he's saying that we've been tricked into worshiping money. And not obviously on our knees worshiping money, but even in some cases, some people get on their knees and literally pray to God for money. But who you really praying to? All right. He says we don't easily recognize the gifts God offers us every day because we are too distracted by worldly forces that constantly compete for our attention and energy, which is our job, which is social media, which is different businesses trying to get your money, trying to get you to consume. And he's saying with the Bitcoin, you'll be disincentivized to consume because you'll be incentivized to save. You'll be incentivized to invest for the long term because your money is not being devalued and is actually growing over time. And he says Bitcoin is an invitation to slow down long enough to see God's hands at work amid the chaos. The emergence of a practical alternative to the modern day mammon, I don't know what that is an invitation to step off the fiat treadmill and more aware of every good and perfect gift we receive. He's saying basically with Bitcoin, if we get on the Bitcoin standard, that we can get off this hamster wheel. We can get off of this 9-to-5 cycle, bro. We're not supposed to work 8 hours a day. We're not supposed to work all year. Like, that's not normal. So what he's saying is with Bitcoin, we can stop focusing so much on work. We can actually let the technological advances that we do have make things easier for us and make things cheaper for us so that we can flourish and actually just enjoy life, be an actual human being. So he says, for instance, it's impossible to delight in the unique qualities of a child if we are constantly limiting how fast they grow up and fretting about various aspects of their future as adults. The saying that kids grow up too fast is itself an indication of a hurried lifestyle. What is it? So he's saying, bro, we're getting all of our time stolen from us. Stolen through the money that we have right now. So that hurried lifestyle is a result of underlying economic fears we carry due to the corruption of our money. An appropriate relationship with time helps us embrace each stage of a child's development as being beautiful in its own right. And that's pretty much the end of the book. He then goes to the conclusion where he says, we're caught in the worship of money in a sort of monetary Stockholm syndrome because of its enslaving nature. Damn, Bitcoin is nothing less than a redemption of our corrupt monetary system. The full redemption of money requires the community's adoption. Obviously, you can say all this stuff about Bitcoin that you want, how good it is, but until the masses are on it, until governments actually start to use it, until enough people start to use it, until enough people start to adopt it, then that will make the governments adopt it, in my opinion. But he says all of the benefits of Bitcoin won't be evident and won't be experienced until, it's the standard. So he said, however, we don't have to wait for the community to adopt Bitcoin to receive its benefits. We can experience a change in perspective that comes from being free of the shackles of our corrupt monetary system, one person at a time. Because Bitcoin gives us a way to renounce the worship of money, we can then understand and experience money as a gift from God that it truly is. Money is a means to trade, and a trade is a means for creating useful things for the community's benefit. Money, in other words, is a necessary ingredient for the fullest expression of who God created us to be. Bad money hinders us from our purpose and draws us towards the worship of created things rather than the Creator. Good money helps us fulfill our purpose and brings us closer to God. Until Bitcoin, good money was not something we could freely choose. That's facts. Whatever money you had, whatever the government used, that's what you used. There was no digital money. So he says we now have a tool to combat our obsession with money and put money in its proper place. For this, we should express our gratitude to God. And at the beginning of the book, he asked, when you first hear the word money, what comes to mind? And the response is typically a mix of, fear, greed, and anxiety. And what he's saying is throughout this book, he hopes that, with the renewed understanding of a good money, that we can change that fear and greed and anxiety to thank God for Bitcoin. So that will be the end of this book. This was a really good book. Opened my eyes to a lot of things. A lot of things I already knew here, a lot of things I didn't. And it just opened my perspective up to the world that we live in, my role in it, and what I plan to do about it. Because you can read this book, get all the information that you want, but what are you going to do about it? How are you going to operate within it? That's the real importance. You got the information. Now, what are you going to do with that information? That's all that matters. Knowledge is not power. The execution of knowledge is power. So that being said, that's the end of this video. Hope you got some value from it. We are starting a new book in the book club, and we're starting that Sunday. We're reading the Thinking in Bets book. So I actually stopped reading that book in order for my book club to get the physical book so we can all read it together. So I'll restart that book, and then I'll make my videos on that and just continue to give y'all value through these videos, because I know a lot of people don't read and they'd rather just hear somebody talk about it, hear somebody, a lot of people like audiobooks. So hopefully I get, as I do these videos, I'll get better and better at breaking them down. I know I'm not the best speaker or anything, but the more I do it, the better I get. That's just how it is. That's how everything is. So hope y'all had a good Monday. I had a long Monday, tired, got to get up early tomorrow, get to work. No trades today, like I said, election tomorrow, eventful week. Hope y'all take care of yourselves, man. And I'll see y'all tomorrow for another video. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And yeah, peace.